And so anyway, there's my contact information. If you need to take a screenshot of it or a picture with your phone or whatever, please don't hesitate to call myself, email either myself, our tech support team, our general sales team, whoever you sort of need. We're here to help you. Like anybody else, we want to be a good partner for you and to try and help with whatever you need. So anyway, we've got a lot to cover, so I will kind of get rolling here. No real sign-in, obviously, but we're going to do a little bit about just a little bit of background on Just Add Power, and then just kind of a brief system overview of how our products work in general, and kind of show you there's sort of different ways you can make them work depending on the application or depending on the hardware that you've got as far as network infrastructure goes. We'll quickly run through our feature sets. Actually, we'll probably spend the most amount of time on the feature sets themselves, including some new stuff we've added in, some new models. We'll go through the models very quickly. It won't take very long to do that. And then talk about a little bit about control, third-party control, our own control, that kind of thing. Quickly run through our software for setting our devices up, if you want to use that, just to kind of show you literally, screen by screen how that works, and that won't take any time hardly at all either. And then we'll end up with just some support information and ways you can be more profitable and get to know more about Just Add Power. So without further ado, a little bit about us. We've been around for quite a while. We are really a network company at our core, at our heart, if you will, founded by ex-IBM and Cisco engineers, and have been sending video traffic through a network for a very long time now, way before everybody and their brother kind of got into the game with this. We've been doing this, started trying to sending VGA signals through a network for government and school type applications. And so we did that for quite a long time, and that trend, so all of our hardware, all of our software, all that stuff is done right here in the United States, in Florida. So some of you probably are from Florida here on the call. So we're sort of in your backyard if you're here in Florida. If not, we're an easy flight to come and visit with us, and I'll tell you some reasons to do that later on. But we've been doing this for a very long time. It's the only thing that we do. So we don't try and make HDMI cables and speakers and control systems and things like that. We do one thing. We do it really, really well. We have more features and more products in this category than anyone else to give you really exactly what you need without having to ever over or underbuild the system. So what are we trying to do? We're sending video through standard network protocols, using standard network protocols. We're basically just taking your audio and video data and pushing it through the network. So, standard network protocols, standard network distances, things like that. We're working on a single gig backplane mostly, so it's very easy. So when we got from the Video Genie VGA sort of thing, where we really started to kind of break out and take off as a company is when HDMI was introduced in our product. So again, there's a lot of companies out there doing this. They just started maybe a year, 2, 3 years ago. We've been doing this since 2008 with HDMI. So our first gen product was 2008. Second gen was a couple of years later, and we added new features and new hardware for us. We're now in what we consider our third gen of product with respect to HDMI product, that is. So that really introduced us into the 4K world and added some new features and new hardware to go with that as well. Part of the beauty of our system, though, is that if you put a system in back in 2010, and that with our 2G products, and that customer came to you today and said, hey, I want to upgrade and add some 4K into my system, maybe add a couple new 4K sources, maybe a couple 4K TVs. In our system, they're only buying hardware for those specific devices, so maybe 1 or 2 new transmitters for new sources, maybe a couple new receivers for new TVs. Maybe we're not upgrading all the TVs in one shot. They don't have to buy all new hardware and start all over again like they would have to do with like a matrix switch. In fact, we can take the new 4K content, down convert it to 1080p or 720p or something like that, and send it back through the system to older devices, so that just by buying an additional receiver to do that. So all the new 4K TVs get their glorious 4K content and all that, but the old TVs can now also watch that 4K content in a resolution that they can handle. So it's very easy to upgrade the system over time. There are a couple different ways our products can be used. They don't have to necessarily go through a network. So if we will work in a point-to-point mode, not done very often, but it is used like this as typically like a problem solver. So if you've used XYZ balance out there and keep having the same flickering on that one TV, you just can't get that final check and get paid on to the next job. take one of our transmitters, any of them, take one of our receivers, any of them, power up each end. Either normally we do PoE, so it's part of the network, but in this case, obviously we're not in a network, so you could do a PoE injector, or you could just plug in a wall wart type power supply. All of our devices do have a power supply connection on them, so they don't need to PoE if you don't have it. So plug your source in one end, your TV in the other end, string category cable between the two, and what comes in point A goes out to point B. We see it used enough like this that we actually came out with what we call a point-to-point transmitter specifically for this type of application. The only difference in the point-to-point transmitter and any of other of our transmitters is that it will power the receiver on the other side. So you don't have to power both ends of it. And once we get out of the network, we can go much greater distances than the standard 330 feet like we would do with a network. So we had an application come up with the Boring Company where they had to go over 600 feet, and we're able to do that with our products. So if you run into weird situations, let us know. We can try and mock it up and make sure it'll work. But just know we will work as a balance. We're not going to be the cheapest balance, but it'll just work, and you can get paid and move on to the next job. The next way we can use our products is through an unmanaged network switch. So we don't need a managed switch if we would just want to use the switch as a splitter. So let's say I've got one source and 23 TVs. I can plug into a 24-port switch, no setup required, one transmitter, 23 receivers, they all see the same thing. So very easy to do that kind of thing. In any size switch, a 5-port switch would be a 1x4, an 8-port would be a 1x7. You get the point. And then the final and most common, honestly, way of doing our products or using our products is in a managed, via managed network switch, where we can send any source to any display device or all display devices, at the same time, do video walls, all that sort of thing. All that's being handled by typically by a third-party control system. Here it's shown as a computer, but normally it's going to be like your RTI processor or something of that nature. So once we do that, then we can do anything anywhere, and it's very easy to just sort of grow the system as the needs are there. So the old way of doing it, of course, and probably the way some of you are still doing it, maybe still doing it, is matrix switching. So inherent, downfalls to matrix switching is you can't really upgrade the customer. If they want to go from 1080p to 4K or 4K to 8K, the whole system has to kind of start over again and do that. Or if they just want to add another source or another TV down the line, they have to, get a whole nother switch or a whole nother matrix switch. Or maybe it's not really the right kind of connectivity. Maybe they need 6 sources and 10 TVs, so an 8x8 is just not going to cut it. They got to go jump all the way to 16x16. So in our world, that's not the case. Also, with upgrades, as I mentioned, we can upgrade ours. We fully expect to have some sort of upgrade path into 8K once that matures and finalizes and that sort of thing as well. And then the other big downside, of course, is if there's a problem somewhere on the matrix switch, then the whole switch has to get pulled and serviced or pulled and replaced. So the whole system has to go down if there's a connection point failure. In our world, if one of our transmitters or one of our receivers, goes down, you lose that one source or you lose that one display device. And oh, by the way, we can get you back up and running the next day if required. So we'll go over that at the end. So basically, any number of sources, any number of display devices, really the only hamstring is the network. How many ports do you have on the switch? How much stacking capability do you have between the switches? So if we need multiple switches, we need the stackable, capable ones with at least a 10 gig fiber uplink, which is one of the big reasons why we like the Cisco and the Luxel switches, to be able to stack those and kind of keep going either from one building to the next, or one floor to the next, or one part of a space to another part of the space. So since we're using network standards, we're also using standard network connectivity types. So couplers, patch panels, keystones, all those sort of things that HD-based-T is a no-no for will work in our world. So Cat5e or higher, Cat6 is, I'm sure, what most of you are pulling at a minimum at this point. So that's all fine and good. They're very easy to retrofit into some older, existing pre-wires and things of that nature. If we need to use fiber, we can do that as well, either between our devices and use a fiber to network adapter, or more commonly using the fiber back between switches like we just talked about. So there are, so I guess back up. So when we first started doing this, 20 plus years ago, we really, from a networking standpoint, the hardware just wasn't there to do what we need to do. So we chose to go the VLAN route, and that's where we make a very clean, very precise use of each network port, and the only traffic on each port is our traffic on the ones that we're programmed for. The rest of the ports can be used for your regular data traffic and things of that nature. VLANs really segregate everything so that we never see the regular, let's say, network traffic, and the normal network traffic never sees our devices. So we can fully, use the entire bandwidth that we need. We're never going to slow down like a point-of-sale system or some other, or Wi-Fi or anything like that when we're using VLANs, because we're never going to cross, the path of the other network devices. So it makes it very clean from a networking perspective, and that's sort of the reason why that's our preferred way of doing things. So that's kind of what we see on the left. On the right-hand side is multicast switching, which we can also do. So that's something that we added a couple of years ago, the ability to use multicast switching as well. Multicast switching is what everybody else does, and the main reasons they do that are that A, it's easy from a network switch setup perspective, and B, multicast has come far enough now that it will do the things that we need it to do, or most of the things that we need it to do. So that's why we've now embraced it as well. VLAN is still your easy button sort of thing. We do see people using multicast from time to time, primarily when you get into a situation where there's already a network in place. Maybe you're working with a larger commercial type install, and they have a network or an IT team, and they have a preferred brand of switches they want to use, and they know how to get in and out and set those up. So that's where multicast comes into play, typically in our world, but it will work with other, with our smaller jobs and that kind of thing as well. The big downsides to multicasting are speed, because we are sharing the network with other devices, other point-of-sale systems, things like that, and the speed in which we switch, from one source to another in multicast world really depends solely on how fast the CPU is in the switch and what other tasks it's being asked to do at any given moment. So the more things it's trying to do, the more devices on the network, that sort of thing, the slower the time can be when you switch from one source to another in multicast mode. With VLAN, it's instantaneous. We switch in less than half of a frame, so you're never going to get that switch from one source to another and have to wait kind of thing like you would do with multicast. Now, multicast isn't really a long period of time typically. It's for anywhere from maybe a second to 2, 5, 6 seconds, something like that. So it's not a terrible amount of time, but it's not instant like VLAN switching. The other downsides to multicast switching, at least with our competitors, would be that most of them require a controller when using multicast switching. So multicast, the controller is another little device, another network appliance that goes on the network, so it takes up another port on the switch, and it requires it's got to stay in the job site the whole time, so that's an additional cost that goes into every project as well. And then third, and probably most importantly, at least in my mind, is it's a single failure point. So if the controller goes down in multicast world, then you lose all of your video switching. So that's, we don't need that when we're doing multicast with just that power, but that's one of the big downsides to having multicast. The other ones are instant switching. Obviously, I just talked about, we lose that. And then the control drivers, depending on how they're written, may take a little more time to set up the drivers. But the VLAN drivers are all ready to go and easy to use. Other benefits to what we do, we can centralize and decentralize. So if we've got a rack that has most of my equipment in it somewhere in the house, that's fine. I've got everything there. But maybe the bedroom and maybe like the kids' rooms or whatever, there's a local Xbox or game console, or there's some kind of Blu-ray player or something like that. We can put a transmitter in the room and also still share all the sources that are back at the rack kind of thing. And then all of our devices are very modular. So again, you buy what you need based on connectivity and based on form factor. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of how we are able to transition from some things to other things over time with the same product line, since we sort of own it end to end, we don't go to China and go, hey, give me this box and slap my name on it. We can add all kinds of hardware and software upgrades over time. So this is kind of sort of where we started with our current 4K Gen product, 5 years ago, and to where we are now by constantly updating, adding as things change, as connectivity types change, as even versions of video, HDR and that sort of thing change as well. We can upgrade and add to that. So pretty cool. So that's what we'd like to call it, virtually limitless HDMI distribution. So main feature sets with just that power. One of the most important ones in my mind is the fact that we never have to downgrade the video because I'm watching 4K and then a 1080p TV turns on somewhere. in our world, we can upscale, downscale, turn on and off HDR based on what each display device can handle. So let's say I'm in my theater, I'm watching a movie, 4K HDR, it's all beautiful, looks great with my family, and then I go into the kitchen, I want to make some popcorn, so I turn my kitchen TV on, 1080p. In a matrix switch world, as soon as I do that, the TV in the theater loses sync, or the projector, whatever it is, has to renegotiate re-handshake. The TV in the kitchen has to renegotiate re-handshake. And when they both come back up again, we're watching 1080p everywhere. In our world, none of that happens. When the kitchen TV turns on, the theater TV never sees that action happen, so it doesn't blink out or blink or anything like that. And the kitchen TV, I'm going to send that 4K HDR content to every TV, and then at the kitchen TV, I'm going to change it to HDCP 1.4 at 1080p or 720p or whatever it is it needs, so that everybody gets the best signal, but everybody can watch all the same sources at whatever their bandwidth require or capabilities are. The other one, instant switching. Not sure how good the video is going to come through on the webinar, but this is a little 4x4 video wall in our office where we're just switching the outside TVs first to different channel or different not channels, different sources actually, and then kind of randomly doing it as well. So just showing you, there's no blue screen, there's no blank screen, there's no snow or anything like that when we're switching between sources. Video walls is built right into our platform. We don't need any additional hardware to do that. So we can make any size video wall. Some of our competitors can do video walls, but it's got to be 2x2 or 4x4 or something like that. We can do any sort of mix of that. You want a 1x12 and a 9x16 and a whatever by whatever. We can do that. We can also wall within the wall. So that top image there where we've got a 2x2 surrounded by singles, we can easily do that and transition from that to just wall mode on the bottom, quickly and easily. We can adjust for bezels and gaps and that sort of thing as well. So if you've got some large bezels, we can adjust and make sure that we associate those properly, so we can kind of have the video behind those gaps or have it jump those gaps if it's more like a PC as your source. When you go to a computer source, maybe we have that bezel jump so we don't cut off any text. But then when I select Blu-ray, that moving motion picture or whatever kind of goes behind the bezel if you're coming from the window. So here's a little bit of a little example of a video wall just to show you how you can cycle through different wall modes. So this is a 3x6 video wall, all individuals, now it's all one, and you'll just see some different presets that are basically being set up by the programmer at this point in time. Some of them are pretty odd. The next one I think that we're going to see is very skewed, it's very stretched, but you'll see where that makes sense a little bit. But yeah, this one here on the right and the left where we got this really squeezed image. So the point is we can wall within a wall and go to any kind of different layout that you want to do. And then you can create content specific to that. So here's another part of that. We'll show that wall. We use this example a lot, and some of you may have seen this if you've been to one of our trainings, but what's cool about this example is, A, it's at a stadium, which is cool. It's a Cincinnati Red Stadium, and B, they've got these giant columns that are holding up the stadium that would be an eyesore otherwise if the integrator smartly wrapped them in a video wall. So now that eyesore became part of the whole experience of this bar, this restaurant. Let's see as he kind of walks around here. We can take that corner and integrate it in and kind of wrap the column with a video wall. So pretty cool way of doing things. You can see there. And then there's that same video wall we just saw the switching on at the beginning there, and where that one stretched mode was created for some content to use, when necessary. The other reasons we like this project are that we started with just in this little restaurant of the Cincinnati Red Stadium, and actually here's the final shot of everything when it's nice and pretty and trimmed out and beautiful and all that. And started in that restaurant and then expanded as once the facilities manager realized how well this whole system worked, we're now throughout the entire stadium. So whether it's owner suites or outdoor areas or multiple video walls or concourse or whatever, it just kind of shows you the power of growth and how we can grow the system. So actually, let me take a pause real quick. So I got some questions in the chat window. I'm going to hold off on the chat window stuff until the very end. So please put them all in there as you're thinking of them, but at the end we'll go through and answer questions and that kind of thing, both via the chat, and we can even try to do some live if you want to get really brave. So anyway, so keep typing your questions in, and I will we'll kind of address them as we get to the end there. If you're local in Florida, then you can go to Miami International Airport and see our products right there, just at the gate areas, at the where you baggage claim and all that kind of stuff as well. So very happy and easy to use our stuff in these large commercial, almost 24-hour days type situations. The other thing we can do with video walls is mosaics. So we can rotate in 90-degree increments so that we can do some fun, cool stuff. The video wall you see back in the back there, that is some vertical and some horizontal display devices. We can rotate in our setup software. So when you open up our web interface, it'll ask you, how do you want to rotate? Do you want to flip upside down? So now if we're doing like a 2x2 video wall, I don't have to have like a logo of the TV manufacturer kind of stuck in the middle of that. I can flip the TV upside down, and then we'll rotate the image back the other way to make it look correct. So our Mosaic video wall setups, you can mix and match and do things like this as well, horizontal and vertical. And really, this is going to be as good as your measurements. So give us really good measurements, and you'll get a really beautiful, stunning picture. Here's that same video wall that we saw a still image of a few seconds ago in more of a live mode. So we can be in a wall mode like this, where it's one continuous image that we fill all the screen as if it's one big sort of window that's kind of chopped in ways like this. Or the next moment, the control system can go, hey, I want menu boards on the vertical panels, and I want to watch different games on all the horizontal panels. So you can very easily come in and out of those modes and do all that with the control system. As you can see, there's kind of the driver from RTI if you want to see how it looks like. So all the drivers have these functionalities built into them. So just a little example of it there. We can also now, as of January of this year, we can now rotate it almost any angle. So now we have a new product that we came out with, which I'll show you a little bit later on, called the Warp Engine, which allows me to rotate in 0.1 degree increments and also zoom in and out on the fly. So I can zoom in and out, I can rotate. If you had a TV that would spin on the wall, I could have the Warp Engine rotate back constantly as you're spinning the TV and make the image look nice and the way it's supposed to be, nice and level. So some fun, interesting things we can do with that. Here's a real-world project, one of the first ones to implement the Warp Engine from an integrator of ours in California, where they've got two video walls, obviously, in the space, a 2x2 standard, and then they've got what we call our herringbone pattern on the right-hand side there. That's all done with one Warp Engine. So all those TVs are rotated at one angle, and then we use the Warp Engine to rotate the image back. Another example here, there's actually our headquarters with another example like that, and here as well. So easy to do patterns like this. Also easy to do what we call the pinwheel pattern, which is the one on the right-hand side with the fish tank there, or what we call the brick pattern, which is the one with the fireplace there. That's actually, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's two vertical panels and two horizontal panels in there. So a little full motion video of that here, we'll see, of that example. So new, really interesting, really cool thing. So get with designers, architects, and let them get creative and come up with whatever designs they can come up with. So we can now use these lobby spaces or coming into an entrance to a beautiful home or something like that, and do something interesting and dynamic with the space rather than something kind of boring and static with it. So we can also control through just that power. We can do CEC, which I know most of the time you stay away from CEC because you get weird things happening that you don't necessarily have real control over. But in our world, it actually works really, really well if we're just turning a display device on and off and maybe selecting the HDMI input. If those are really the only three things we're trying to do, CEC is your friend in our world, because the only three commands the display devices are going to get are going to be one of those three commands. And they're only going to get it when the control system tells them to get it. So it's not a random CEC thing like you have in typical CEC applications. It's a controlled CEC, does have feedback so we can tell if something's happened or not for your control systems. But it's a beautiful thing, like let's say you're doing a sports bar and you've got 30 TVs and 10 of them are LG and 10 of them are Samsung and 10 of them are Sony. With CEC, the commands are all the same. I don't have to worry about reprogramming the control system when I change out the display device later on down the road. So my programming is easy. It's very reliable. It just works that way. So don't be afraid of it in our world. Of course, drivers written for that as well. You'll see that in the drivers. R232 is also built into everything that we do, so there's no additional, I guess there is additional hardware. You need the DB9 to mini adapter cable. We'll send you those if you need them. But anyway, so R232 is built into all of our transmitters. and all of our receivers, and in all the drivers as well. So obviously we can do two-way, bidirectional, get your feedback for your control systems to tell if something's turned on or off, or what the volume level is, and that sort of thing. That's built into our platform. We can also take that RS-232 port and change it into an infrared port if you need IR control at either, again, a display device or a source device. We do that via this little guy here. We affectionately call it our flux capacitor. Got a little Y shape, yeah, kind of cool there. So it comes with everything you need. It comes with an IR flasher. It comes with the cabling that you need. It connects to the transmitter or receiver, and it's powered off of the transmitter or receiver. So I don't need other power supplies or anything like that. So it's a nice little bundle that comes with everything you need. Change that 232 port into an infrared port if you need it. Another beautiful thing about our IR and RS-232 control is that we don't need the physical ports on your control system. So let's say I want to control 30 bar TVs via IR. I don't need any IR outputs on my RTI processor, my Crestron processor, my whatever it is processor. We do it all virtually through the network. Same thing with RS-232. We don't need to take up those valuable RS-232 ports from a control system if you don't want to. We can do it all virtually to save those for other devices or make it so you don't have to get I/O extenders and things like that. We also have a feature that we call image pull. You'll see here, this is on an RTI interface. I can either image pull from a transmitter or a receiver. So in this case, I'm kind of watching what's going on from all of my sources right here on this page of the control system. I flip to the next page of the control system and I see what's going on in all the rooms. So image pull allows us to pull a file up to 10 frames per second. So it's not quite full motion video, but it's certainly fast enough for an end user to be able to see what's playing at the source or what's playing at the display device. We can also see that here on a couple of RTI panels, or our web interface we can pull that as well, and you can control how often that's done. Most control systems, you're going to want to pull that every 2 seconds or so, because if you get much faster than that, it's just too much data. It's going to bog down the control processor. We also have kind of the opposite of that, a feature called image push, which is where we can overlay something when there's no video signal present. So it can be an automatic something that pops up when my DirecTV went down or my cable box went down. So typically this is used in a residential world where you put maybe your logo or phone number to call if there's no image there, or maybe even a help screen that says, hey, go press this button on the surge protector and we're going to reset things for you. This feature actually came to us as a request from a casino where they have potentially hundreds of TVs where if their video feed dies, they don't want hundreds of blue screens and black screens and things like that. So make sure we have an image up there. And we can do that by just simply doing image push. So you can automatically have it load an image when there's no video signal present. So we can also use it for troubleshooting that way. We also have kind of a hybrid we call image pop, which is where I can overlay a logo in the top left corner of a screen and have it there permanently. So do some branding if it's a commercial application kind of thing. I'm in Tampa, so that's why I got Buccaneers there stuff. But you can, the establishment can kind of do some branding. They can even set transparency so we're not completely blocking, maybe the score or something that's behind that. That's what we call image pop. We can also handle all of the high-res audio formats, DTSX, Dolby Atmos, True HD, and that sort of thing. So that can all be handled through our platform as well. We can even down mix and give you basically a multi-channel mix and a two-channel mix at the same time. So we do have a device that will give us a transmitter that will take in a Dolby Digital 5.1 feed coming in, say from your cable box, broadcast that as PCM to all of your TVs so they get a signal, and also broadcast it as ProLogic 2 to your AVR. So it's not the native 5.16 that the AVR is getting, but it is still a discrete 5.1 channel signal. So it's not, we're not having to sort of dumb everything out like you would do with pretty much all of our other competitors. The other thing we can do if you don't need that is just a straight two-channel in, two-channel out model. This one just came out as well. So our newest transmitter. So this is actually what every other competitor is doing except for one, and that's basically bringing two-channel in, two-channel out. This, in my mind, should be sort of your base go-to transmitter. It's only $10 more dealer cost than the one without audio breakout. So even if you don't need it at the moment, it gives you the flexibility to be able to add it in if later on down the road they want to have an HDMI source with an analog audio out feed in my distributed audio system. We can also mix in line stereo and mic inputs if we need to. So for like paging, or if I want to take a some sort of an audio, like a Sonos type device or something like that, and bring that in and over mix that, that analog signal on top of an HDMI video signal on the fly. We can do that as well, line in the mic in capabilities. Obviously, mic in for things like paging and that sort of thing. We can also handle Dante audio signals. So if you're not super familiar with Dante, then I would suggest, especially maybe now during what's going on in the U.S. right now and globally, go to Audinate.com and go through. They have self-paced tutorials where you can get level 1 and level 2 certified in Dante. It's primarily used in the commercial world, but this past CD, we saw lots of companies there with Dante, so we're seeing it start to migrate into the residential, the CD marketplace as well. But what's cool about Dante is it's a standard for distributing audio through a network. So any Dante device will automatically recognize any other Dante device when you plug them into the network. So in our case, we have a transmitter that has an HDMI in and an HDMI out, and a loop out, and has 2 network ports on it. One is to take the HDMI audio and video signal and dump it into the Just Add Power network so any receiver can pick that up. And the other is to take the audio only from that source and dump it onto the Dante network. And it's so now a Dante endpoint, like a speaker or an amplifier, can now pick up the audio signal from, let's say, the cable box plugged in here. They can pick up whatever channels they want. We use an 8-channel Dante chipset, so we can handle 7.1 channel signals, high-res audio as well. By the same token, I can bring in a Dante signal from like a Dante source device, like a mixing board or something of that nature, and overlay that on the Just Add Power network. So now I can be watching one, that video from the cable box and listening to a different audio source overlaid on top of that, and that's done on the fly. So it's a bidirectional Dante port that can be switched by as necessary. So pretty cool stuff. We can also handle USB through the network if we want to send things for like KVM switches and wireless keyboard and mice, things of that nature. Excuse me. We can transmit that, and we can transmit that. We can direct that as it needs to be directed. So in this example here, I've got maybe a conference room with a wireless keyboard and mouse. I've got 3 computers back in a rack somewhere. I can make it so that whichever computer I've selected in that conference room at that time is the one that one wireless keyboard and mouse is controlling. So I don't need to have 3 wireless keyboard and mice in that room. I can just use 1. I can also go the other way with that. So this actually came up with a project that I was working on with the dealer a few weeks back, where they had it was a residential project, and they had a home office where they had a computer, of course, and they said they wanted to be able to control that computer in 3 other rooms. So a master bedroom and like a bonus room, and I forget what the other room was. So going the other way with the wireless keyboard, so 3 TVs going back to 1 computer can work as well. So either way, we can route that as necessary. We can also use the USB for things like touchscreens and things of that nature. So all the Nike factory stores are using Just Add Power to transmit audio and video walls and fun stuff like that. But where they also use it is these touchscreens you can walk up to and design your shoes and your clothes and that sort of thing. And all that is a touchscreen that's connected back to a computer via USB via Just Add Power. So pretty easy to do that as well. We can also share the network port if we need to for other devices like your TVs, your smart TVs, and or maybe wireless devices like a wireless WAP or a PoE. It's also a PoE port on one of our transmitters that has it. So you could use the PoE port to go to a PoE device, a PoE touchscreen, or something like that. We can also use that to send our data. So we can send, we can take that receiver and daisy chain multiples of those together and create a video wall from 1 network cable. So maybe I've got a customer that there's it's already pre-wired. They've got 1 wire going to location. Now they want to have a 2x2 video wall. We can do that. We can also take and daisy chain. Maybe it's going into what's going to be turned into a home gym. So it was pre-wired for 1 TV, but now they want to put a TV on all 4 walls. As long as I can daisy chain 1 TV to the next, I don't have to necessarily head in all the way back to be able to do something like that. So in VLAN mode, it would look like this. It's the same image on all TVs, or in wall mode, it's 1 image on all TVs as well. This is one place where multicast does give me an additional option, because in multicast world, I can send multiple streams down 1 Cat5 pipeline. So I can have a 2x2 video wall with all 1 image or all individual images, or 2+2, however they want to do it. or back to that, that home gym example, if they wanted 4 different things going on for whatever weird reason, they could do that as well. That's all via the 509 receiver and doing multicast mode to do that. Obviously, when we're sending 4 things down one category cable, that's a lot of data we're trying to send, so we do have to kind of bandwidth to throttle that to make sure everybody gets what they want. We can still send 4K content, but we do have to bandwidth throttle that a little bit as well. So it's possible, but if you get this application, then call us, and we'll help you design it and make sure we're getting the right solution for you. We can also overlay text on the screen. Any size, any font, any color, again, built into the drivers to do that as well. So I can overlay that text as live text, or it can come from a control system. Maybe when there's the alarm is hit, and maybe put text on the screen to say, hey, the alarm's been triggered, at my bedroom, or things like that. We can also, like I said, use fiber to go long distances, either between our devices or between switches. So if you're working in larger buildings, or maybe you're working in a residential space where you've got a main house and a guest house and a pool house, we can have fiber between those 3 locations and share anything, anywhere, all very easily. We also have a feature that we call Plug, Play, Present, which is a really, really easy way to basically start a room up when somebody plugs a device in. So this is built into all of our transmitters and receivers. It's logic to tell them, the transmitter, to tell receivers what to do. So plug my laptop in, turn the TV on, turn multiple TVs on, turn the video wall on, whatever I want to do. And then when I unplug, wait X number of seconds, however much time you want us to wait, and then reverse the process or turn things off or whatever, without having to have a control system in place. Now, obviously, if there is a control system in place, it will still work. It will still do what it needs to do. It's just they won't need to go to the touch panel or the remote to fire the room up when somebody just wants to plug in a local source. So anyway, that was a simple firmware update that we did, just this cool little feature that works quite well. So single room application, or even something like this, where we've got a podium where somebody comes up to and they plug in, and now we turn all the TVs on, we turn the projectors on, whatever they might be, put them in wall mode if they're video wall, and then turn things back off once we're finished. There we go, lots of animations here. We also have another control function called Switch Please, which can be used from any web interface. So you don't have to download an app. Sorry, you don't have to download an app. You don't have to worry about having the right size screen, that sort of thing. It self-adjusts based on the web browser. But it's an easy way for basic video switching control without having a control system. It will not, of course, replace a good control system, but if we're doing maybe testing, initially setting the system up and the control system isn't in place yet, or maybe the sources are sort of static that stay on the same channels, or maybe they're PCs or computers or something, and I just want to be able to pick between them. I can rename them. I can do batch switching of all, a bunch of sources at once. I can rename the sources. I can rename the TVs. I can hide and show certain TVs and certain sources if I don't want those to be shown. And of course, I can use the image pull feature, which is what you're seeing there, to kind of show real time what's playing on each TV. So very easy to do as well. So that's sort of it as far as the broad feature set. Now we'll quickly run you through the hardware itself. We'll start with the receivers because that's where it's easy. There's only a couple of models. We do have a nice little chart here that I can send out that kind of lets you kind of start here and work from there. We have 2 actual parallel product lines. We have a 1080p product line and a 4K line. I'm only kind of covering the 4K, but there are sort of parallel products in the 1080p line, and you can mix them and match them if you need to, just to save a little bit of cost or something like that. Anyway, so 4K receivers here, start with the base unit, and then depending on what kind of maybe form factor and or what kind of connectivity, that's where you move, from the 508 to the 509 to the 518, and kind of go from there. So as far as transmitters go, here's where it gets a little bit more hairy, but again, we're trying to give you exactly what you need so the customer never has to overbuy or underbuy the system, with the full flexibility to be able to add to it down the road with whatever type of connectivity they need. So we're not trying to just say, here's our 2 devices, I hope they have what you want. If they don't, too bad, go out and buy other little doodads and boxes and splitters and converters and things like that. That's not the way we want to play things. We want to give you exactly what you need and go from there. So start with our 707 transmitter, and then again, based on what kind of audio capabilities do I need, what kind of USB, HDMI capabilities do I need, we kind of go from there with that. And then we do have, in the transmitters, we expand that even more to give you other form factors, other types of connectivity other than just HDMI. We have SDI, we have VGA, we have TVI. So if you've got broadcast cameras in a house of worship, we can directly plug those into just that power system and send those to all the TVs everywhere. We also have rack mount products, which I'll show you in the next slide, and we have wall plate transmitters as well to get you the right form factor for that. We have 2-gang, 4-gang. We just came out with a brand new one at CEC that's very simple, HDMI only, very clean, very shallow, very easy to use. And then, of course, nice and neat with rack mounting as well. So as far as transmitters, again, you can start here and sort of, again, based on what kind of connectivity and or what kind of form factor, move sideways, up and down based on that. And then our coolest transmitter, or actually, I wouldn't say that, maybe it's a cool one. We have another cool one just came out as well, but really cool one is our tiling transmitter. So the tiling transmitter lets us combine either 1, 2, 3, or 4 sources together and output those as one source essentially. So we do have some standard layouts. So it's kind of the reverse of a video wall. I want to take my big projection screen or my smallest TV, my 13-inch TV in my bathroom, and show 4 images in it. We can do that with a video tiler. So our standard views are quad view, or 3 on the bottom, 1 on the top, 3 on the side, and 1 to the left. But part of the beauty of the tiler is you can customize it to make any type of view that you want with those 1, 2, 3, or 4 tiles. So it could be all 4 tiles, 2 tiles, 1 tile. We can crop things, and we can overlay tiles on top of tiles. We can set transparency so that I'm not necessarily blocking what's behind what's going on. So some kind of cool ones. Vertical signage. So if you go like tops off and things like that, we can easily do what they're doing, where we take 1 TV and we turn it, and now we can throw 3 16:9 images on that, or 4. Not 16:9 obviously, but you could do 1, 2, 3, or 4. We can also do 3 on the bottom, 1 on the top, and maybe not stretch it, so we maintain aspect ratio. Maybe that's a preset. Another really cool one, I think, is multiple tickers. So if you have a client that likes to watch maybe a news ticker and a sports ticker and a financial ticker, we can crop those off of cable boxes or Raspberry Pis or computers or whatever, overlay those on the bottom of the screen, and have a 4th image above that as well. Another cool use like that in a commercial world would be putting sort of a ticker for digital signage across the bottom, and another ticker for digital signage to one side, and still keep a 16:9 main image on the screen. So we can get some ROI very quickly in the commercial world by using a tiler to do some digital signage type things. Obviously, overlaying tiles on top of each other, that's not a real practical one, but this one is. So in a residential world, I've got, and so let me back up and say one more thing about it. The tiler is available to every TV in the system, so it's not like it's just going to go to my biggest TV in the house. Any TV can select the tiled image. So the cool example here on the bottom right there is, maybe it's late at night, I'm in the master bedroom, I'm watching TV, there's motion at my front door. I can pick the front door feed from the NVR as my tile and pop that on the screen and overlay that for 60 seconds or whatever, and have that happen automatically based on motion, motion detection from the control system. So something like that's very cool. Or if you've got that client that just always wants to watch their surveillance system, but normally they do it via an iPad in their lap, now you can put their surveillance system on the big screen TV that they're watching in the living room, and they can watch that while they're watching whatever else they're going to try and watch on TV. We can also tile within a tile. So in this case, we've got 2 tilers. So there's actually 7 tiles on one screen, one big screen. So the larger the screen gets, the more tiles we can start fitting and still get good spacing and still see what's going on. So that's 2 tiles. So every additional tiler gives me 3 additional tiles. So we did a project last year in the DC area in Crystal City, where they had an 8-foot high by 20-foot wide LED, one TV basically, and they put 5 tiles in the system, so they can now watch anywhere from 1 to 16 games on that 8-foot high by 20-foot wide screen just by tiling within a tile. So pretty cool use case scenarios, and taking advantage when you've got particularly really, really large format screens and LED walls and things like that. Our newest transmitter is what we call a warp engine. I kind of showed you that before. This is what the one that lets me take any image from any source, or any source I should say, rotated in any angle and spit it back out in the system. So I've got my normal, that source from a normal transmitter that's available anywhere. This just kind of sits on top of the system like a tiler does. So it just becomes an add-in feature. It's basically a transceiver. Take any source, rotate it however you want it, spit it back out, and also zoom in and out. So if I want to be able to, have the images cut off, like maybe there, like in this graphic, we're sort of cutting off, and taking a slice of that. But maybe if I'm watching an actual TV program, I can zoom in and have it so that it fully fills the, I can see the whole picture basically. So pretty cool little piece, now shipping, so have fun with that and do all kinds of crazy creative stuff with it. We also, our last accessory is our rack shelf, so looks like this, lets you vertically stack up to 13 units in one width and anywhere from 3 to 5 units high based on how many, or which device you're using from us. As far as control goes, real quick through that, we can test control through our software or like you saw through a web interface as well. We do have drivers written for all the major third-party control systems. Those are on our website. You can download those and there's documentation and all that kind of fun stuff for it as well. You can see again, a sample of that from like an RTI type system. So that's control. So again, all the major third-party control systems, we do have those in our database. If there's somebody that's not in our list, then let us know. We'll reach out to them and we'll get them the protocols and we'll get our system into their database. Our software, let me run through that real quick because we're kind of running out of time. Our software is called JagConfig. So I'll quickly kind of run you through how that works. This is our automated software to set everything up for you when you want to do VLAN switching with a Luxor or Cisco switch. We also have software to set up multicast switching for you as well. I'm not going to go through that, but we have that too. So JagConfig, the way it works is we connect our laptop to the switch in two places, one via the network port and one via the USB to serial adapter through what's called the console connection on the switch. All the Luxor and Cisco switches come with a console cable using the USB to 232 adapter. So connect to the switch, port 1 on the switch, open up the software, hit set up a new system. This is literally all the screens in our software, so you're going to see how easy it is. If you program any type of third-party control system, you're going to think of our software as child's play. It's really just drop-down menu, next kind of stuff. Just nothing complicated about it whatsoever. So set up a new system. Then it's going to ask you, how is your laptop connected to the switch? How's the network connection connected to the switch? Either directly to the switch in port 1, or are we going through a router that's then connected to the switch? It doesn't matter. We just need to know so we know how to go and find the switch. So with or without. Next page is drop-down menu driven. What's my network adapter from my laptop, my wired one, is where you're going to connect to, of course. Which COM port is that USB to serial adapter connected to? Is it a Luxor or a Cisco switch? That's drop-down menu driven. You pick it, then we automatically put in the username and password. To get into that switch, the default ones, if you change it, then obviously let us know what that is. You hit next. Now we log into the switch and make sure it is a Luxor or a Cisco or whatever it might be, and make sure we can actually talk to it with the software. So this takes just a few seconds, log back out again. From there, this is the hardest part of our programming, is telling us how many transmitters and how many receivers. So it's really, really not complicated. So you can either type that value in, or you can hit the little plus minus to put that in there. Default transmitter, that third line item down, that's just which one is going to power up, when the system reboots. So doesn't really matter there. The switch IP address, put that in there is what you want that to be. What class is the just add power device, or the just add power device is going to be on? We don't really care. We just want to make sure we're not on the same classification as your normal network traffic. So we need to be on a different class. We're not sort of butting heads or anything like that, or having IP address conflicts or anything. So pick whatever it is you want. Hit next. There's a verification screen. Just say, okay, this is how we're going to program things. Are you sure? Yep, sure. Go. Hit next. Now this is where we do all that network heavy lifting, that Cisco certification kind of stuff that you don't want to really have to go through to learn about VLANs. We do it all for you. We go and set the VLANs up for you. Once we've done that, we log back out and physically show you a picture of the back of the switch and show you where to plug your transmitters and your receivers in. So in this case, it's a 26-port switch. It's going to show me 26 ports. If it were a 12-port switch, it would show me just 12. So very easy to follow. The main things are here, port 1 is always used for control, so we're never going to put our devices on port 1. The next set of ports from that are for all your transmitters. The third set are for your receivers. The last set, if there are any available, are for whatever you're going to plug into them. So all your standard network equipment if you want to do that. I'll tell you, most dealers, the best way to set this up, or the best practice would be leave yourself some room to grow with transmitters and receivers. So let's say I got some extra ports available. Go ahead and tell the software I want to program those for transmitters and I want to program those for receivers, so that later on down the road, if you want to add to the system, you don't have to go back and rerun the software again. It's plug and play to be able to do that. So hit next, plug your devices in. We don't care which model transmitters or which model receivers you plug into which ports. Just plug the transmitters in the transmitter ports, receivers in the receiver ports. Unplug your HDMI cables from the sources, not from the TVs. You know, get behind TVs and like that, but just unplug the HDMIs from your sources in the rack or wherever they are, or just unplug power from the sources. And then hit next. Now we go out and we find all the just that power transmitters and receivers. Once we finish that, we show you what we found. So if there's a problem somewhere, you'll see it show up here. You'll see something missing maybe, that there's something should be there, so go back and check your patch cables. You can also display a patching diagram, which will show you if you've got maybe a transmitter plugged in the receiver port, something weird like that. And after that, we can then, the main thing for us is making sure all of our devices are in the same firmware. We do that all in one shot if they're not. So if we looked at this page here and saw that some of the devices, in this case like port 10, is a different firmware, and actually port 9 from the other one. So when we go next, we're going to update those models so that everybody's in the same firmware automatically. This is also where you can upload your own background image, so it automatically pops up when there's no video signal present. If we need to do a firmware update, that adds a little bit of time to the process, not very much. Most of you can get like a 26 port or whatever switch set up in about 10 or 15 minutes of total time, so it's pretty quick. But there will take a little bit of additional time for doing firmware updates if you need to. Once it's all said and done, we show you again everything that we found. We also export that to an Excel file, so you have that for your customer file, your information, and also for your control system. So this is what you need to have the IP addresses so that you know if it's not a self-discovering control system, then you're going to need to manually type in the IP addresses of our devices. So some of the control drivers self-discover all of our devices, so that's pretty cool too. So the last main thing on this is static route. So that's what's highlighted in orange here. So that will allow the router to see our devices since we're on a different network from your regular network. So the router and or your control system really. So this is a way that RTI or Control4, whatever it might be, can tunnel through and get to the just power devices by adding a static route. So very simple to do. We give you the exact values here. So copy them, paste them, name it whatever you want to name it, and you're done. And that's the way the control system can see our devices. So we can also test that static route if you need to do that right in our software. So that's a new feature we added fairly recently. And that's it. So that's the extent of our software. We'll easily walk you through that. Just a slide here if you need us to as well. Our support team is awesome. I'll go over that in a little bit. But a couple last little things as far as support goes. I do have some competitive comparison charts if you need those. So if you're going up against one of our competitors' devices, let me know. I'll give you the comparison charts out, and they are model, or not model, but brand specific, so you don't have to see everybody in one shot. We kind of highlight the real differences so it's very easy to see, how we differ from XYZ brand. If you need gear to borrow to do your own testing on, to test with your own control drivers or whatever you're going to do, let us know. We do have demo kits available. They are 2 transmitters, 2 receivers, 2 4K sources, all the electrical network gear you need to run everything from an iPad or anything like that. The only thing you need are 2 display devices and power to plug everything in. Just that power, right? So we'll get you those. You can borrow those from 30, 60 days kind of thing and kind of test and play around with it. If you want to own stuff for your own personal use, or if you're trying to build out your showroom with just that power, we do have a form you fill out for that. That comes directly from us. We don't want the distributors to take a hit on that. So that form comes to us. We send it directly to you. It's kind of a one-time shot. It's obviously not for resale. It's just I want some gear to kind of play around with, to get used to get comfortable with. So, just like anything else, once you've used it, you'll be more comfortable. You'll be more comfortable selling it and using it. And then the one on the right there is what we call our case study program. So if you want to get some highlighting on some, project that you've done, we will do that for you through our PR firm. So whether it doesn't matter what kind of project, it could be residential, country club, hospitality, bars, restaurants, things like that, casinos. We have all kinds of examples out there that we can send to you. But it's a way for you to get some kudos for a job well done. You're proud of your work. You want somebody to know about it. We'll write it up, or our PR firm will write it up so it comes out professional and nice and all that. And we'll also give you 4 transmitters or 4 receivers as a thank you, or 2+2 or 3+1 or whatever, how you want to do it. As sort of a thank you for going through the trouble of helping us write that up. So basic information, some images, and our PR firm will take it from there. So please take advantage of that as well. We have all kinds of them out there. A little bit of an example of some of our projects that are out there that we've got. So these are all real world, real uses of them that we can give you examples of. 24 hours a day, in some cases, kind of use case scenarios. We got more project examples, of course, through social media. If you've got examples that you want to tag us with, and we'll use them as well, help you get some more eyes on the project or something of that nature. Our support is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, noon to 8 Spanish speaking, both speaking and text and email that way. We just won an award from Residential Systems, Platinum Technical Support. Our support team is awesome. They make my job much easier. They will make your job much easier, so please lean on them as much as you need to. They're fantastic. We love them. As far as warranty goes, we have a 5-year warranty on all of our devices. We actually upgraded this last year from 3 to 5 years and made it retroactive even to all current generation products, simply because our products just don't break. I mean, obviously they do from time to time, but it's so rare that we said, let's just bump the warranty up and make it whole for 5 years for everybody that's bought our current generation product since 2015. So the way it works is if you have a problem with one of our units, call our support team. We're going to verify there actually is a hardware problem. If you tell us the IP address and the firmware version of the unit, we will pre-program it and send it to you plug and play ready. So that's where you need that Excel file of that information. And it will send it wherever it needs to go. So if it needs to go right to the job site or right to your warehouse or wherever, that's fine. Standard shipping is ground. If you say, hey, this is mission critical, I got to have this thing tomorrow, we will overnight it for no additional charge. So we stand behind our product. It works really well. If there's a problem, we just want to take care of it as fast as possible. And then if you want hands-on factory training with us at our headquarters, it's free. You just have to get to Tampa, Florida area, get to the Tampa airport. We'll provide your transportation from there for everything. We'll also provide your hotel room for everything. Essentially, the way it works is you come on a Wednesday afternoon. We go out to dinner Wednesday night. We cover dinner and meals from Wednesday through Friday lunch. So dinner Wednesday night, then you come to training all day on Thursday. We give you a voucher for meals Thursday night. Again, back to training again on Friday for about a half of a day. Then we'll go out and take you out to lunch to celebrate, job well done. After the Friday lunch, you can either go home and we'll take you back to the airport or wherever you need to go, or I guess back to the airport or back to the hotel. Or if you want to stay through the weekend, we'll pay for the hotel through the weekend as well. So if you want to turn it into kind of a mini vacation, get away a little bit, go to the beaches, go to Disney, that sort of thing, and do it a little bit on our time, then please take advantage of that. So it's done once a month. We had to cancel our March and April, of course, because of COVID-19. As of right now, May is still on track. We only hold 16 people at a time, so it does fill up. So if you're interested in it, please sign up and get rolling with it. So with that, I will now, sorry, it's a lot of information, but I'll try to get through it. We'll answer some questions. So a question that came across, tiling multiple sources tiled on a single large display. Yes, we do. Yep, so we covered that, so that's now 4K. I will now, this is going to be interesting, but I will now unmute everyone. So if you want to shout something out or whatever, then let's do that. So I can figure out where I want to do that. Oh, I think we're going to unmute you. Oh, there you go. Anybody have any questions they want to throw out there? I did have some other questions out here. Will this presentation be available later? Yes, email me. I will send it to you. We recorded it, so we're going to get the link available. So if you need it that way, please don't hesitate. So do we have an arrow backwards to control video sources from the zones? No, it's not a pass-through like that. So it's not a pass-through like European. So the IR control is driven from a control system only. In our case, and it's IP to IR. So that was one of the questions that came up. My email address, if you need the presentation, is Brian, B-R-I-A-N, at justadpower.com. So pretty easy. Let's see what else we have. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, then thank you very much. I appreciate the time. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to call or email. Thanks, everyone.